What does Luxembourg's financial centre invest in most? Stocks? Bonds? Gold?
Well, actually, you'll be surprised to know that what we invest in most is you. Where else can you spend your day dealing with international financial markets? And enjoy sunset drinks with friends from around the world? Where else can you be a part of shaping the future of financial innovation? Yes, all of that. And take a lunchtime run through a lush forest on the city's doorstep. Where else can you find such an exciting place to build your career? And watch your children grow up speaking 4 different languages. Where else can you live the life you want? Come see for yourself.
Welcome to Focus On, bringing together financial industry experts of different horizons, sharing and discussing their insights.
Hello and welcome to our live stream. Today we will talk about an issue that is paramount to financial services: talent attraction and retention. More than ever, businesses from around the world need to meet client demands and adapt to evolving market conditions in a very competitive environment. And in order to do that, they need long-term strategies, technology and capital. Not only financial capital, but first and foremost, human capital. However, the majority of employers today, and in financial services more specifically, are facing the highest talent shortage in 2 decades. They simply find it increasingly difficult to find the best people for the job. And while the process of finding, attracting and hiring the best talent requires a lot of planning and is a key strategic function, it's also an exercise involving the left side of our brains, touching on people's perception about financial services in general, the values one stands for, the activities one engages in, and the long-term prospects on offer. And this left side, right side brain approach is exactly what we will focus on over the next hour with the leading experts from financial services that have joined me here in the studio. We will discuss best practices as well as how companies are adapting their operations to the future of work. We will speak with leading recruiters about their observations on the employment market. And we will also close the session with a deep dive into the value of apprenticeships. And one key message that will be echoed by all our speakers today is that employers and employees who are not willing to broaden their horizons will have little chance to emerge as winners in the long term. And the first guest today is Sally Nelson. She's Chief People Officer at Fidelity International in London. She will share her views in relation to talent attraction and how things are shifting. Enjoy the live stream.
Well, thank you very much, Lynn, and hello, everyone. I am really delighted to join you here today at the Luxembourg for Finance Forum, and thank you so much for the invitation. The focus on talent retention has never been more important for organizations as they face into such challenging times and straight on the heels of the global pandemic, which, let's face it, changed working practices forever. And on the eve of my 24th anniversary with the same organisation, I've done a bit of soul searching as to what makes the difference between someone staying and growing their career in the same place and deciding to move on. So for me, a critical factor has been the high level of sponsorship to try new things, support to get out of my comfort zone and build on transferable skills in new areas. It's really important not to pigeonhole people and keep them in narrow swim lanes, but to give them your backing and to test them out in broader roles. My background is in HR, but in my time at Fidelity, I've had many different responsibilities added into my portfolio at different times of my career. So I've had 10 years overseeing corporate property services, several years overseeing the Fidelity Foundations and different roles within HR before culminating in becoming the head of HR in 2009. So to set a little bit more of the scene around why talent retention has never been more important and why investment in our people is a critical enabler, I'm going to start by quoting Justin Trudeau from the World Economic Forum in Davos, where he said, "The pace of change has never been this fast, yet it will never be this slow again." So with that in mind, I think it's really impossible to kick off any discussion these days without mentioning AI and the pace of change we'll experience over the coming years and already beginning to experience. The World Economic Forum estimates that 85 million existing roles globally will be displaced due to technology and automation. And they estimate that 97 million new roles will be created in their place. In financial services alone, we know that there are currently over 50,000 open vacancies in the UK where I'm based, and the skills for these roles have changed an average of 26% since 2015, according to LinkedIn. We know new sources of data will affect the skills needed for investment decision-making. Investment professionals that I talk to are telling us that the areas of development for them include a foundational understanding of AI and machine learning, as well as a knowledge of sustainability issues, which is very topical. All of this means a shift in how roles will be structured, both in the client-facing and the enablement roles. As people are living longer and thus working longer, career paths are becoming more varied and characterized by more career breaks, greater flexibility, and with greater crossover between industries. So how are we building a talent strategy that addresses all of this? I'm going to touch on three key organizational areas: acquisition, development, and retention. Maybe starting with talent acquisition. So at the moment, we find attracting external candidates for our open roles is somewhat easier than last year due to the change in market conditions. However, what we have seen is employee expectations change in relation to organizational transparency and purpose, sustainability, and the need for flexibility in the way they work. To this end, over the past 3 years, we've invested time developing our employee value proposition, revisiting our values and behaviors. So what makes us who we are, our values of trust and integrity, and our behaviors, which are curious, compassionate, bold, and brave. And the continued focus on our purpose of building better financial futures for our clients. These form the bedrock of employee experience at Fidelity, where I work. Our strong employee proposition and the way we cared for our people during the pandemic has also had a positive impact on attractiveness in the external talent marketplace. And I think a lot of other employers are finding the same thing. This is reflected in the quality and quantity of applications we receive and in independent ratings from Glassdoor and LinkedIn. In the talent acquisition space, we continue to invest in automating our processes so as to provide a streamlined service to our applicants, our focus being to shape an organization that's both attractive and continues to be high performing to achieve our goals of being a best place to work, but also, and most importantly, being a best place for our clients to trust us with their assets. We're continuing to invest heavily in early careers, graduates, interns, and apprentices. And I don't know about everyone else, but whilst our external hiring has reduced in response to the challenging economic environment, we've still hired more early careers people this year than last, and we're going to continue investing heavily in this future leadership and talent pipeline because it's so important. I'm now going to move on to talent development, and some key focus areas for us include leadership and management development, internal mobility, career vitality, building that learning culture that's so important, and moving towards a skill-based organisation. A real focus for us in 2023 is internal mobility. 3 years ago, we launched our talent marketplace, which helps us democratise career development by giving employees the autonomy and the freedom to search and to have pushed to them opportunities for internal jobs, as well as finding a mentor or maybe working on a short-term gig-style project to gain valuable exposure and experience in different parts of the organisation, and in addition to their day jobs. We're seeing the benefits of this investment starting to pay real dividends, both from a development point of view, but also, more importantly, a productivity point of view. We recognise the importance of building a learning organisation, and to quote Alvin Toffler, who said, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn and relearn." To this end, the use of scalable, democratized platforms such as LinkedIn Learning, Pluralsight, Gloat, the talent marketplace that we use, are vital to drive learning at scale across the organization. This ties into our 70-20-10 model, which focuses on how we move development from focusing on the 10%, which is the traditional courses and formal training, into the 70%, where all people in our organization learn in the flow of work and learn from others, thus providing people with the opportunity to learn on the job and when and where it suits them. We also provide bespoke interventions, for example, our investment academy and our sales academy, where employees can work through specific learning curriculums to prepare themselves for an investment or sales role in the future, even if they're not necessarily in those areas at the moment, thus ensuring our future internal pipeline. Like many organisations you speak with, we're also on the skills journey, which we're currently building through the skills-based organisation project. Our ability to move from skills needs identification to solutions needs, just like everyone else, is critical, as is the need to shorten the learning time and to be brought into the flow of work in a very practical way. We're trying now to think very differently about roles and skills, questioning what's essential and what's nice to have, what's the price of admission, what can be learned, and the value of cross-fertilization in talent moving around the business, including senior people and much more. But all of these initiatives require the right focus and, over time, a clear value definition. Today, we can measure satisfaction and participation. In the future, we're looking to be able to measure behavioural change and value creation, much harder to measure, but we hope with the use of data, it should be the way to go. We're investing heavily in our data capability, as we know data-led decision-making provides the best outcomes, and it's how we learn as an organisation. Our other focus area is our leadership and management development, and we recently conducted our very first manager effectiveness survey. The data from this survey will allow us to identify future areas of focus for our manager population. Talent retention is an area where we started applying some new talent practices. So this year we're focusing on 2 talent processes, one looking at the senior succession population, ever important, and the other looking at a wider population identified in talent reviews and focusing on how to accelerate their exposure, visibility, offer the right challenge, and drive them to increase their contribution, both in terms of breadth and by moving around Fidelity. This, we believe, creates value to individuals as well as to our business and keeps people with us for longer. D&I, I'm sure you're not surprised to hear me mention that, is at the heart of everything we do and is critical to everything talent. We know how deeply unconscious bias goes, and to overcome it, we need to apply a much more data-driven, consistent way to view our talent. We therefore connect talent practices to D&I principles to ensure we are identifying, promoting, and enabling diverse talent. A good example for this is looking at our female population and understanding where is the challenge, for example, in their promotion cycle, which level we see a drop in numbers, so that we can devise some interventions and create some bespoke solutions that help with this. At an age where we are experiencing talent shortages, or at least shortages for some types of talent, it's really key, we believe, to understand and connect our business needs to talent requirements and to translate those into the right practices. We know we need to keep things nimble and fast-paced. So in conclusion, we have more tools than ever before. It's how we utilize them in the right way, how we build partnerships, both in and outside the business, to drive that all-important talent agenda, how we use data to help us see clearly and to continue to evolve us as an employer, and a business that will ultimately make the difference in whether or not we continue to be somewhere people want to come. So to quote J.K. Rowling, anything's possible if you've got enough nerve. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to our panel that's going to pick up on some of the themes that Sally just articulated in answering the key question, the future of work in finance, how companies are adapting operations to attract and to retain talent. Here with me to answer this very challenging question, it's on the lips of everybody all over the world, I have three distinguished panelists. I have Daniel Frank, who is the COO of Baloise here in Luxembourg, Geraldine Hassler, who is the head of people and culture in KPMG, and coming from London by online technology, Malcolm Horton, the director of talent acquisition and global mobility at Linklaters in London. So we're going to be talking a bit about the impact of technology on attracting and retaining talent during the course of this. So I guess we've all been subjected to this phrase, the Great Reset. And from my point of view, being perhaps nearer to the end of my career than I am at the start of my career, the old world used to have a particularly predictable way about it when you were entering into a career in finance. But today's workforce seems to have less patience perhaps than we had, and to have different priorities. And I don't know if that's what your firm is experiencing, and if it is, what on earth can you do about it? Daniel.
Yes, basically, I can agree that we see this kind of behavior where people take less time to learn things, they want more challenges faster. And so the thing is, we know them, we know who they are, because not everyone is like that, obviously. Some people just want their routine work and do more or less the same job for the next 5 to 10 years. But others, every 2 or 3 months, or no, 2 or 3 years, sorry, want some new challenges. So we know that, we offer them challenges, we think about them, and there's new projects or even new jobs. That can also be sometimes the case. But we also talk to them proactively and make them aware that they, in our opinion, are sometimes a bit too impatient, that they also have to work on that and not always look for new challenges, but first already finish what they have started.
And do you think that's typical to the insurance sector, or do you think that's a general malaise or development, not even a malaise,
I'm
and
not
development?
sure if it's a malaise, it's new, it's not for everyone, as I said. I don't think it's particular to insurance. I think it's everywhere where you need projects, and projects today, there's so many different ones, so there's also more opportunities. So it's actually quite good to have people like that, but we have to settle them a little bit and also support them that they do not make the wrong choices.
And Geraldine, is that, does that sort of echo at KPMG? I mean, a lot of us in my industry, for instance, would be looking for talent from the Big Four. So it's very important for us to know that you're being able to tackle this issue too.
Yes, definitely. I think it's not very specific to insurance. I think that on our side, in the financial sector, we do have the same observations. Now, we know that the workforce has different cycles, and when you say we may see that we think that they are too impatient, we know also that there is a new generation coming on the labor market, and we know also that we have been facing with the post-pandemic phase, where the needs and what we are looking for, it may be also different and challenging as well.
Yes, and I think I'd bring Malcolm in here, because obviously Malcolm, although now you're working for one of the magic circle firms in London, you have been, like me, in investment banking. So you've got an interesting perspective on how these forces at work are panning out on every level, both finance but also in the legal profession.
Well, I think, Jervis, you brought up the point of the impact of technology, which has made everyone accelerate what they feel they can deliver and the impact they can have on the organization, whether it's a law firm or a financial services organization. The training that people get around how to use technology to make decisions, how to access information, which 30 years ago would take several nights of research, is now done at the touch of a button, means they feel like they've done a lot in a matter of hours, and thus they expect the return to come back just as quick. And resetting what success looks like in a career is also quite important. To the points that have been made around managing expectations of what it takes to get to the right level means you have to trust that the organization knows what that looks like as well and is able to communicate that. People need to reset what it means to get promoted. Is it learning horizontally, or is it managing up vertically? But that requires good managers to communicate well in order to reset the bar for employees.
So in fact, it could be said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that the Great Reset isn't just about the new entrants to the workforce and the younger members. It has a big impact on the more senior people and the veterans as well, for this very reason.
Absolutely. The veterans who had probably more faith in their organizations that if they worked hard, they would be recognized and promoted. The younger generation perhaps doesn't come in with that trust in a brand. So the brand actually has to explain a lot more around why it's important to invest, to work hard, to deliver certain work ethic, and manage expectations.
So in terms of concrete actions that Baloise is taking, for instance, to do this, are there any unique features that you feel you're bringing in that maybe a firm like Vistra could learn from in terms of attracting talent?
Yeah, obviously the insurance sector has some very specific jobs we need. Let's talk typically about actuaries, claims handlers with legal background, product managers, and there's a very little market for them all over Europe, I would say. So what we are looking at, but it's very marginal, I must say, at this stage, is how can we get people on a freelance contract so they can work remotely from their country of origin. They don't have to come to the headquarters physically every day or now. And so that enlarges, of course, the scope of the community we can address for this type of very specific jobs, which actually, if I look just in Luxembourg, there's very little. So we go already to neighboring countries, but even there, it starts getting difficult. So that's, I would say, not unique, but it's because that exists in the IT for many years. Yes. But maybe some specific jobs can also be done that way.
No, it's a very good suggestion. We certainly don't have that model. What about KPMG, these exciting accountants and consultants? What have you got?
And I think that I would like to build on the point that Malcolm said. It's about also to be clear about the employee value proposition and to manage the expectations. I think that communication is key. That's true that KPMG benefits from the brand, but what is important also is to communicate better also to the people that their work matters and has an importance. So it's really focusing on the purpose and to give them the opportunities also to see how we can develop them in a long term as well. So I think it is important that the communication, we really manage the communication by more explaining the why, not only the what, but the why, then the what and the how. And this is what the younger generation is looking for, by the way. And much more, we are talking about trust. They need to trust also the employer, and for that we need to have transparent and honest communication, and where there is a call for action also for the management and the leadership to play a key role in that and not only rely on the HR department.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key. That gone are the days where people just got a job for money.
Yeah.
The newer world means that people are thinking, whether it's the older people or the younger people, they're thinking more about a balance between making money and doing something valuable for the community, for the planet, etc. So it is an interesting development. It wouldn't have been true 20 years ago. How about Linklaters? Have you got any unique things we could copy, Malcolm?
I think a lot of, and I think you'll probably come to this, around understanding what people expect from the organization requires having a lot more conversations than we perhaps had 20 years ago. Everyone perhaps does exit interviews and people are leaving the firm, but we have a lot more conversations now called stay interviews, which many firms do, which is understanding why people stay at the firm and what will keep them at the firm, to make sure that there's a proper alignment with what the firm is offering with what employees expect. And I think the point has been made, not everyone expects the same thing, but having that transparency about what is on offer means a lot more open dialogue and time spent on that than we necessarily had too many years ago. And we have a lot more resources and people trained, particularly managers, trained to do that, having those conversations with staff. And we value that time. It's not just all about billing your hours. That investment in your people is just as important.
That's very interesting, because obviously the old days we used to just have the annual appraisal if there was time, and that was usually, certainly in investment banking, that was usually a bonus argument, a sort of negotiation rather than a real appraisal. Now, I think there's much more continual discussions about what people are doing well, what they may need to have some training on. Going back to the technology issue, because this comes into training as well, are you finding it difficult to find roles for new entrants because we've moved to a sort of robotic age? I'm thinking particularly of things like ChatGPT and what one of your competitors at Linklaters have done on, I think it's called Harvey. So there's a robot doing some of the research for the lawyers, which of course used to be done by new entrants. How is this impacting insurance, for instance? Are there still junior roles that you can give to new entrants, or are you having to start them at a slightly more senior level?
I would say we are still at early stages for that, but we are actually looking at artificial intelligence. How can that help us to be more efficient and to also give better quality service to our customers? So indeed, traditionally, you would say the young people come and they start with the simple tasks first, and then over the years, they gradually learn how to do the more complex ones. Now in the world, where the simple ones are already done by the robots, they have to enter into that stage a bit later, let's say, so they're missing kind of this basic training. So that's what we have in mind, and we are doing already, is to give them the 360-degree view of the whole insurance value chain, so sending them to different departments. Let's say in operations, you go to contract management, then you go to customer care service, you go to claims management, you go even to the sales in the agency. So that you really understand the business, and not maybe, as in the past, you know very well one piece of the puzzle, but the rest you don't really have the view of it. That's only one example. So we call that cross-training, basically. Of course, continuous development is extremely important, and then maybe to finish, soft skills, I think, will be more and more important, because the robots don't have that really. Here I'm talking about communication, teamwork, critical thinking, strategic thinking, all these kind of things, and we have to get better in that by using the time we save on the simple tasks to invest into the more complex and the human tasks.
Which would be more interesting for the
Absolutely.
humans. Yes. Geraldine, would you say that was pretty much the same?
Yes,
KPMG?
exactly. I think that, yes, we are looking for tech profiles, but we should not also neglect that any business or financial people or lawyers need also to be familiarized also with the technology part. When we are saying do work that matters, that I was previously saying, I think it's really about when we are attracting and retaining high qualified people, we need to make sure that what they are doing are relevant, and that's where digitalization, automation really helps their role. So where the people can bring their added value on what they need to do as well. So
one of the things that I benefited from a lot in my career was the fact that when I was working for a big American bank, I moved around the world a lot. So I was what we used to call, in a rather hackneyed fashion, a culture carrier, because I'd worked for Citibank in London, then I went to New York for 7 years, came back to London, covered the Middle East for 2 years, and then I went to Hong Kong for 4, then came to Luxembourg. So that type of person, you'd think that might be interesting for the modern generation as well, the people who want to be a little bit more transient. Are you seeing any of that, Malcolm, or because legal is a bit different because you've got your own local law to think about. So as the head of global mobility, what sort of challenges are you seeing at the moment?
Actually, the client base that we have are global clients. So they actually expect our lawyers to have a global perspective. They don't necessarily have to be qualified in every region, but they have to understand and have the access to professionals who can help solve global problems. So for that, to that extent, we need lawyers to spend time in other regions to build relationships, both internally and externally, that they can draw on to solve more complex problems. The type of solutions that our clients are looking for are not commoditized decisions that AI can deliver. We are looking at complex cross-border problems that require a global perspective that AI has not seen enough to draw from. So that means that we still have a place, but it also means we have to develop talent to continue to play that role and appreciate that they need to know how to use AI to support that growth, not to replace decision-making.
And social media as well, coming into the global mobility. Are you advertising on Twitter? Actually, it's not called Twitter anymore, X, on X and LinkedIn and so on about how to come for a global organization?
Yes, we certainly do more and more. We have a special team in marketing who's doing that, employer branding. It's also steered by the group somehow. And the message is also to put into emphasis more the real meaning of insurance. I mean, insurance is there to help people in distress. And I think that's a very nice cause and a very nice thing to do. And so we have campaigns like that for the customers, but also for the future employees and also for the existing employees to keep them. Because if they really see the purpose in what they do for society as a whole, then I think it's much easier to get them and to retain them.
Yes, social networks are playing a key role in our day-to-day, I think. So we can't not be present and visible. But it's not only to post our job advertisements, but it is also about talking what we are doing and the lifestyle in a company. Because something that we may have not tackled, the people are looking for also, is about a company culture. And they need to see the lifestyle, what would be our offer. And the best advertisement that we do have also is our people. And I think that they are playing, and they are probably also the influencers in this social network. Now, definitely, we have probably some room for improvement because the young generation are using more and more social networks. That company needs to look at it and to make sure that we are present and visible, and that we communicate the right messages based on the audience that they are having.
I make no apologies for my next question because having spent a lifetime talking to clients, it's always good to try and find out what are the key points that they're facing, what are the challenges they're facing. So my question to the august panel is, if you had a magic stick or a magic wand and you could wave it to create something for the future on this topic about talent, what would it be? Shall we start with Malcolm? You've got a magic wand. What are you going to do with it?
I think probably the most effective organizations that I've worked in during the course of my career is when there's consistency in a belief in the culture of the organization. You know, we've all worked in global organizations where when you move from office to office, region to region, it can feel too different sometimes. And in a global world, yes, doing things a little bit different with cultural sensitivity is important, but a shared goal and a shared way of doing things that feels empowering is something that really makes a difference in terms of motivating and retaining talent. To make that happen quickly is challenging because it requires everyone to find that common thread around the world. But ultimately, that would be the thing that, for me, solves a lot of the challenges we have of bringing global talent together.
Daniel.
Yeah, I like Malcolm's wand. I have a similar one. Let's say when people leave companies, usually they do it because they're not happy. And we all have moments and days in our working life where we are not super happy that day. But what makes you stick, in my belief, is, yeah, Malcolm's wand with the culture, but also, and that's what I said a bit earlier on, if you really believe in what you do. you see the purpose of your job. It's not just sitting behind your desk and keying in figures and getting a payslip at the end of the month, but it's, in our case, helping people who have a problem. Every industry has its own noble cause to work. And if you really believe in that, then I think you will stick with the company even if you have maybe a bad moment. So that would be my want, to create that environment.
Very true. The medical profession, of course. Yes. Geraldine, finally
So
with you.
we also said that retention is the new recruitment. When we're assessing our people's engagement, what we do see is that the first motivation and key retention driver is the people. So people keeps the people follow the people. So I would say, like Malcolm says, is also the consistency in what we do and what we say, but putting the people in the center of everything we do. We are a people business. So the key message that I would like to say is that sometimes we are doing things transactionally, and it's probably the moment to say, let's work smarter than harder and increase your listening skills, having a listening culture, and try to co-create with the people. Because whatever the level of experience or the level of the hierarchy you are, you play a key role for the retention and for the well-being of the people. And as well, if we are treating our people like this, it's also with our clients, because clients are also human beings. And we need also to involve them in our business and co-create together. So digitalization, automation is great, and I think that the next, the future probably of the jobs is really focusing on this emotional intelligence, is focusing on the people in everything that we do.
Fantastic. What a great way to finish. So I think we've done the rounds. We've gone through most of the key challenges. It's a huge topic. We could be here all day, but we've only got an hour. And later on, we'll hear from the recruiters who will give us some challenges around that. I think from our panel, really the conclusions I took away is that having a shared purpose as a company is really important these days. So it's not just about money, it's about what are we doing. We heard about helping people, the importance of technology and digitization and training the mid-career people on all of those tools, because the new entrants may know how to use them, but the older people like me may be struggling. And bringing in your clients, co-creating with the clients. So there's a few really, really tangible ideas coming through from the panel, and I'd just like everybody to join me in thanking them for their time today, and we look forward to the continuation of this incredibly important topic as we go forward. So thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Gwladys, Agnieszka, Andrew, a very warm welcome to our studio. You just heard Sally Nelson's keynote speech as well as the previous panel, and I'm sure that there are a lot of topics and points that also resonate with you. And I would actually like to discuss some of the frequently asked questions that you as recruiters and more specifically in financial services are facing. And allow me to start maybe with you, Andrew, because based on how the finance job market has evolved this year, what are some of the key observations or trends that you have identified?
Sure. Well, it's certainly been an interesting year so far, and one with a lot of uncertainty that's happening. And that's something that we've seen over the last few years in terms of uncertainty, in terms of the crisis and economic crisis. Uncertainty certainly makes the job market much more interesting from an employer's perspective, but also from a candidate's perspective. And there's many changes over that time, especially this year, and how we forecast for the rest of the year to continue evolving. The biggest challenge in, I think, all of the financial services sectors are talent and retention. What do people need to do to attract the right people? There's many people that are trying many different strategies, not succeeding, and are wondering why people are leaving their organisations at the same time. So there's been a big move over the last few years in what candidates really want from their employers. And certainly from an employee's perspective, what do employers want from their candidates? I mean, in such a big changing economical world with many changes in regulation, ESG, fintech, technology, there's so many things that are affecting the day-to-day lives of people and the way that they work. So there's a lot of questions asked from both sides. What do they want? What do employers want? And how can they survive the future?
Agnieszka, is there anything else you could add on a global level? Because financial centers such as Luxembourg, but also others, are often international in nature, and there are some cross-border specificities.
Absolutely, Lina. We notice, we observe globally that global financial markets are facing the same challenges than our market, which means it's not only about climate, it's cybersecurity, blockchain, AI, Internet of Things. All those changes require new competencies and technical competencies coupled with some client exposure and empathy, and it comes to the conclusion that many financial institutions are struggling today to attract and to retain talents, and the fact is that they are not competing only against themselves, so the direct competitors, but they compete also against the global system. So cross-sectors competencies we are looking for, they are wanted by everyone. So financial institutions are not the only ones to want those competencies. And the next thing is about also millennials. So they are attracted today much more by innovative, agile, state-of-art fintech and startup, which means that the fact that we are losing millennials is one of the most important challenges for the financial industry today. And last but not least, many financial institutions, including Luxembourg, underestimate the digital transformation as well. Mm-hmm. And exactly. The skills we need to go there. Mm-hmm. So that's the global image we've got.
Mm-hmm. Now, taking into account these challenges, Gwladys, when employers reach out to you, to recruiters, what are currently the functions that are the hardest to fill? Which ones are most challenging for you as a recruiter?
I do agree with what Andrew and Agnieszka just said, and I think that first of all we need to have in mind that we are facing a big challenge, that it's still a candidate-driven market. Even if there are some economic changes due to demography, we are facing this kind of market. So there are two ideas I would like to share on that. First of all, companies tend to recruit the same kind of profiles, and above all, at the same level of seniority. Around 10 years experience, according to the last talent studies we did with our professional recruiter association. And there is a bias about young people, meaning that employers consider that young people are more competitive, flexible, and less expensive, which is not true anymore, because people around 10 years experience can have the same package of people around 20 years of experience. Regarding skills shortage, first of all, we need to recruit people able to learn how to learn. And it's about profiles in regulation, in compliance, in risk management, tax, obviously. And we need people also who are able to do the business on a daily basis. Those who are catching clients, doing business development, especially at an international level. We need people able to deal with changes, to deal with transformation. And we need experts in oversight in the funds industry. And we need also experts in the debt asset class for alternative funds.
Andrew, do you share the same observations, and maybe also do you share the same views on the bias that also Gwladys just mentioned?
Sure, yeah, it's a complex situation at the moment, and I think there's no easy vacancies to fill. That's for sure. With any role, it really depends on the expectation of the employer. What are they looking for, and is that actually realistic in terms of the labour market? So that's something which can cause there to be a longer term job placement process, and that is something that we need to go through and understand at the start of the situation. In terms of bias, yes, there's always going to be bias, and I think employers are trying to, and certainly we as recruiters are trying to educate the market on what they need to look at when they're hiring people. I think there's a vast amount of information about their coming back to salary as there was opposed to many years ago. So junior candidates, senior candidates, they have access at their fingertips in terms of what salaries are paying at particular companies. They have reviews of companies. What do they do? How do they work? And they are really in the driving seat in terms of how they make decisions about which career paths and which employers they choose as well.
Absolutely.
Agnieszka, you already earlier mentioned digitization, transformation closely linked to technology as well in companies. Is technology the reason why the financial services sector is facing this shortage, or are there maybe also other factors at play?
Very interesting question, Lina. I think financial institutions need to realize that the reality has changed, and the change is the new reality. So based on the last report from Deloitte, automation, for example, will double down in 2025, which means that this is the reality. We have to adapt. And what the bad news, I think, based on what I just mentioned about millennials, is the fact that millennials will go to perhaps more fun, more innovative, more agile fintech or startup. But on the other side, transformation will also boost optimization effectiveness, which means that it will drive to less jobs, and this transformation needs to be guided by companies today. So they absolutely need to realize how to attract the right skills, how to bring cybersecurity, how to bring AI people, how to bring Internet of Things professionals, and this transformation again needs to be driven by the top management as well. And what's interesting to add is that on the top management, when we ask top managers today about transformation, then link transformation, digital transformation, in many cases to process optimizations, which means process optimization, less headcounts, and better margin. It's much more about that. So, what we need would be certainly to have much more fearless top leaders on the top of organization, to be able to create a bigger picture about financial sector of tomorrow, and perhaps also less boring and greedy image we've got at the moment. For example, based on Capgemini last study, so it was the study in 2021, senior leaders from big international banking institutions, they believe also that digital skills, tech digital skills, has been widening for a couple of years. So there is certainly something much bigger. The impact is certainly much bigger of having no skills than in the insurance and other financial services companies.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we talk about digitization, about robots, there is also a parallel discussion going on, which is also very, very important. It's diversity in the workplace, equal chances also becoming the norm. And there, my question to you, Gwladys, is that when clients contact you, are they asking, for example, for more and more women to be on the shortlist?
Absolutely. The good news is that 100% of our clients in finance are asking us to balance our shortlist of candidates with half women, half men. So I think it's going in the right direction. I mean, we're not there yet, definitely, but I have to say that there are some jobs, it's so difficult to find women. For instance, I'm working in a role of CIO, so coming to IT. It's very hard for me to find women to put on the shortlist, and that's the same when we're talking about quantitative risk management, for instance. So maybe an option would be also to train our little girl or young ladies about finance and to tell them that there is a possible career in finance to do, because we need more women in finance, and that's possible to do a career there. But I have also to say that, and I know we have been discussing that with Agnieszka earlier, but in my view, most of very expensive candidates on our shortlist are women with around 10 years experience, but they did well in terms of salary negotiations. But those women having difficulties to enter the job market are women around 50 years of experience, but that's the same for men. Actually, it's not a discrimination about gender, it's more about age, because there is a discrimination about age in the finance industry as well, because companies want to have more young people because population is more aged in a way in finance. But I have a wish that in a few years, no one is asking me this question anymore, because it will be just business as usual to recruit women, especially in senior functions.
I promise that in 10 years' time, I will not ask this question anymore, but it's definitely an interesting topic. So I would like to continue a little bit on it with you, Andrew. Anything you would like to add on this topic of women in finance?
Absolutely, yeah, it's such an important factor, really. And people talk about skills shortages and how it's difficult to find the right people. And of course, on top of that, the diversity of skills and looking at the women in finance as well is an equally important factor. And I share your opinion, Gwladys, in terms of finding particular profiles when we are asked to find and provide a balanced shortlist in risk, as an example. Yeah. It's really, really difficult to find the right skill set and to provide that balanced shortlist, just because they just don't exist in particular segments. I mean, I think coming back to that education piece, if we can educate all the way through from school level, from early ages about possibilities in your career, what's possible for people to achieve, and I think that's certainly a good point. But it's also coming down to the leaders, the managers, the people in the positions now to encourage future leaders of tomorrow, to make sure that they are keen to take a leading role, to take a slightly different role, or even to look at upskilling people. There's still, I think, a lot of people that are trying to plug and play. They need someone to fit a role, and that's all they want them to do. They don't think about how this person, as a woman, could transfer their skills into a particular role and be successful in the future. So I think that's something that still is ongoing. It's still being discussed, and there could be more done about that as well.
Yeah. But I think that women do not like being selected because they're women.
True. Yeah, I would probably say that, but yeah, I think this depends on the bias of the person selecting them and why they should be brought into the role, and obviously they want to be hired for the right reasons and making sure they're competent
for their skills.
Yeah,
definitely. Maybe.
There is one question that I've wanted to ask for a long time, very briefly, Agnieszka. Some say that businesses have never done as much hiring as today, and they've also never spent as much money doing it as today. But maybe they have never done a worse job as today. Is anything going wrong in the process there? Is there something you could maybe add based on your experience about the recruiting process in general to attract people?
Yeah, maybe first, my colleagues just mentioned that some competencies women are not easy to find in this specific segment. Perhaps we just need to go out of silos and to put at place very robust, independent, transparent selection processes, just to find people, hidden candidates, I would say, not looking for another job at the moment. And there are so many women, so many great profiles on the market, and we forget them, because the selection processes are not robust and independent enough. So this is it drives me to the second point about employer value proposal. So if we want to attract people not looking for a job at the moment, because we go directly for the skills we need, and those skills, they are well paid, they are happy with the current role, they are happy with the current employer, how can we attract them? So employer value proposal is very important today, much more important than before. The purpose, vision, engaged leaders, no greenwashing. That's very important today because communication is everywhere, and candidates are completely aware if somebody walks the talk or not. So that's very important. The next thing is about succession plans. We keep complaining that we can't find the leaders, but we don't prepare the succession plans. We don't anticipate. We don't give us a chance to not leave it for chance, I would say, to find the right leaders. So succession plans are very important to put in place. And the last but not least, very robust assessment tools. So it needs to be data-driven, it needs to be measured, it needs to be tracked, because what gets measured gets done.
Exactly.
So that's the point. So there are many different things, many different, I would say, behaviors to put in place just to be able to find another way to find the candidates of tomorrow.
So maybe in that regard, even in a competitive environment, maybe not only the employees are sometimes impatient, but also the employers. Maybe we should build in a little bit more patience and time to find and develop the right people. Andrew, the process of getting to a satisfactory hire or recruitment, has that process, has a time? Did the time get longer over the last months or years, or has it even become more costly? How do you see that evolution?
Well, I think the longer it takes, the more costly it becomes. But ultimately, yes, I think some of the positions have certainly taken longer to fill now. And that comes back to my earlier point about expectations, really. What is it that someone wants out of their position, and how do they see that from attracting the right candidate? And what are they doing to put the things in place that are going to make them an employer of choice as well? If they're not an employer of choice, and they're not recognised in your market, in your location, as being somewhere that people want to work, that's going to make your life very, very difficult to attract high-quality talent as well. So thinking about what is it you as an employer can do, what does the candidate want, and making sure your expectations are realistic. I mean, there's many times that we do discuss roles, what companies want, and we say, look, this is not possible on the market. It may be your wish list, but why don't we think about trying to adapt some of these things? Can we upskill people? Can we be a bit adaptable? This will make the time to fill much quicker for you as well. So there's a bit of adaptability, and you look at people in the market, there's many changes going on, and they look for employees or candidates to be adaptable, creative, all of the soft skills as well, but thinking about that from an employer's perspective as well. How can they adapt themselves? What can they do to attract a different calibre of candidate and a different type of candidate as well?
Maybe a final question to all of you, I guess, especially for employers. The grass sometimes looks greener on the other side. So that also means that when you're involved as recruiters, you sometimes start your search and you look for people, and then maybe you reach out to people who are not looking to move at all. And so based on your interactions with different type of candidates, with talents, what is a good advice that you could also share with employers on how to keep their talented people? And maybe you can also share with us in which companies it's often the most difficult to poach talent or to take the talent away. So who would like to start? Gwladys, maybe?
So first of all, I would say that our job is to look for people not looking for a job, because the market that our clients and companies, most of the time, they do prefer candidates not looking for a job than those one looking for a job. That's the reality of our search, I would say. But bearing in mind that we are really on a candidate-driven market, and this is the new normal indeed. I do agree with Agnieszka. We have to accept it. We need to just surf the wave in a way. And my recommendations for companies to remain attractive would be, first of all, stop tailorization of work in finance. Companies have to create added value job, those ones that people are really proud to do. And secondly, they have to invest on the middle managers. We are talking a lot about senior managers, but middle managers are doing the job on a daily basis. They need to be valued. We need to create corporate culture around them. They need to have the tools. And there are companies when we were talking about inpatients. And there are companies that step by step are thinking about long-term recruitment, meaning just not about plug-and-play recruitment, but about transferable skills from a job to another, a sector to another. And they are just building a new concept that I like to call sustainable recruitment. And if I had to do sustainable recruitment, I will start to align my website, my promises to my actions to employees in order that people, they just have to focus on their work.
Yeah. Agnieszka?
I think what I can add many things, but I think one of the most important things we can observe and our recommendation based on that is that financial institutions run into a kind of leadership problem. With limited vision. You mentioned strategy, sustainable recruitment. You can't hire somebody on a long-term basis and give him the vision or her the vision if this vision doesn't exist on the top level. So this limited vision is a real problem. The second thing, many organizations have not sustainable business models at all at this moment. Some of them dare to question status quo, and they become role models, and it would be great just to follow them. And last but not least, what would be also interesting to showcase the importance, the fundamental importance of financial industry on the global economy. This is something I think I'm missing today. And at the end of the day, great companies, they hire great leaders. So.
And Andrew, the final wise words are for you as well.
Sure. Well, the great points from Agnieszka and Gwladys as well. I certainly agree with both of those points. And I think it just comes back down to employers need to have a very clear strategy in terms of how they drive their recruitment, their attraction. And this is not a short-term goal. They've got to think long-term. What is their employer brand? And you're coming back to your point, what's the hardest company to recruit from or headhunt from? It's going to be the companies that have the best employer brand. Why do companies and what are they perceived as in the industry? And why do people go to work there? That's the companies where they're going to have probably the most happiest employers, the people that are most productive, and these people are enjoying their work. So of course, people that are in a different organisation to that, then naturally they're a lot of the time going to want to leave. So that makes our life perhaps a bit easier at the same time. But yeah, I think from an employer value proposition, think about branding, social media, campaigns, linking up as an employer of choice, really, linking up with schools, associations, and thinking long-term instead of short-term would be probably the biggest win to do on a short-term.
Gwladys, Andrew, Agnieszka, thank you very much for sharing these insights and for talking to us today. And I'm very honored now to give the word to Christine Wolff, Head of Talent and Development at Deutsche Bank in Frankfurt. She knows everything about apprenticeship programs, and you will see that they can bring great value to your organization.
Thank you very much, Lynn, and thanks for having me here at Luxembourg for Finance. It's a special pleasure for me to be here today for the topic Focus on Talent, as this has accompanied me for the last 20 years and is still a matter very close to my heart. For this keynote, I've been asked to speak about the value of apprenticeship in the context of talent. So let me first start to give you a general overview of the German dual vocational training system, and then later go into more detail about how we have implemented that in our company over the last decades, and what does it mean for us in regards to talent attraction. At the end, you will hopefully have some food for thoughts as to whether this concept might be, in a way, also helpful for your company to be well positioned in the increasing war for talent that we are all facing. The dual vocational training system has a long and meaningful history in Germany, and has been constantly improved and further developed over the last decades. It fills an important key position between school and the labor market and offers a very practical alternative to the university track. The outstanding feature of the system is the combination of being trained directly on the job in the company on the one hand side, and on the other side, being taught at a vocational school or university. The duration of an apprenticeship differs between 2 and 3.5 years, depending on the chosen profession and the individual level of the school grads. There are also different models in place with regards to the theory and the practice. The theory apprenticeships either go to the vocational school regularly every week for 1 or 2 days, or they learn multiple weeks at once. It differs on the profession, and it also differs on the system you have in place in that region. The remaining time is intent to gain practical work experience directly in the company. Apprentices very much benefit from having the chance to apply what they have learned at vocational school directly in the real work environment and also with real colleagues and teams. According to latest update in the German government's portal, there are currently more than 400,000 companies in Germany who offer apprenticeships in more than 300 professions to interested young people. Completing a dual vocational training is very popular in Germany. Around 2/3 of all school leavers are starting vocational training. And the job perspectives are very good. About 2/3 of the young professions stay in their training company, and almost all of them finally find a job in the profession they have learned. The success of the dual vocational training system is fundamentally based on the joint effort of multiple stakeholders. Beside the training companies, there are the German legislature, the social partners, and the trade unions, as well as the respective Chamber of Commerce and Industry or Crafts. All are working closely together to ensure high-quality standards are collectively defined, met, and further developed in order to keep the dual vocational training future-proofed. The German legislature provides the framework with the Vocational Training Act and is responsible for all public vocational schools. A couple of years ago, we had to really rework the whole act because we have to make it fit for the future with digitalization and other topics. In particular, the respective chamber plays an important role as they oversee the training companies and trainers prove the necessary personal and professional qualification. Else, they organize the final examination for the individual professions. The dual vocational training system provides a lot of benefits. The apprentices learn important skills based on clearly defined standards, and not only theoretically, but also very practically in the training companies. This gives them the opportunity to get to know the chosen profession and the training companies in real work environment already during the apprenticeship. Training companies, on the other side, have the opportunity to create pipelines of urgently needed specialists for the companies and can already convey important company specifics during the apprenticeship. This gives them an excellent position in the war for talent compared to companies who do not offer dual vocational training opportunities. So you see the apprenticeship do have significant benefits, not only for apprentices, but also for the companies. It has a long tradition in Deutsche Bank and belongs to the most important talent pipelines for the entire group since years. So in the past, we could easily build a strong junior pipeline and were able to select the best from the best. However, as we all know, time has changed and we all feel the headwinds when it comes to increasing war for talents. So being an employer of choice for diverse talents was and is still key for the success of many companies, so it is for Deutsche Bank. Therefore, we do offer attractive opportunities to recent school leavers, even outside the ordinary banking roles. There are two different types of programs we are currently offering to school leavers. One is the dual vocational training, which ends with an official exam at the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and B, the dual vocational training studies, which ends with an academic bachelor degree and is partially combined with the exam at the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. In 2022, we hired 485 apprentices for our 16 apprenticeship and dual vocational professions at Deutsche Bank and Postbank, out of 15,500 who applied. This has been a decrease of approximately 8% compared to the year before. We also offered 353 employments to apprenticeships who has finalized their studies, and this has been a decrease of 7%. This development reflects the challenge of overall demographic changes leading to fewer school leavers, but also the market trends towards higher level of education leading to fewer applicants. Especially for technology offerings, the competition for young talents is increasing year on year. As a result, over the financial market crisis, the attractiveness of banking training has declined as well. To meet these challenges appropriately, we decided to set up a special team that focuses exclusively on recruiting and potential future apprentices. And this team is called Active Sourcing Team. The main focus of this team is to get potential school leavers excited about the company, get in touch with them at an early stage, and most importantly, stay in touch with them. We made the experience that we lose a lot of people just before they start at the company. And so now we try to really be engaged with them on a one-on-one base and get them already some insights into the company before they start so that we don't lose them. The team advises also young people on the various opportunities that are offered in our company. This can be, for example, internship for students and school grads who start their university track soon, or they support students when joining the Girls and Boys Day to learn more about what it means to be in a global bank. The experts for the active sourcing team also represent our company at special fairs, job fairs or at school events or other fairs where young people are around and they support them how they can find the right profession which fits best for them. Further, they offer applicant training that includes support of preparing documents and also train them in interviews. As already mentioned, it is not only important to get young people excited about our company and jobs, it's also really important to stay in contact with them and interest them into what we are doing. With regards to the specific requirements of this target group, the social media is as of importance. Currently, we are presenting at X, former Twitter, LinkedIn, and here we are playing with our internal influencers. So former apprentices are doing this work for us, Instagram and Facebook. But we saw it's not enough. And that's why we are now thinking about starting at TikTok beginning of next year. We are convinced that these efforts will pay out, but we are very much aware that we constantly need to pay attention to stay on top of the game. I hope this gave you a little bit of an insight what we are doing in terms of internships and apprentices and gave you a little bit food for thoughts. Thank you very much for your attention. Enjoy the rest of the event, and I hand over back to Lynn.
And with that, we have come to the end of this live stream. Hopefully, the discussions today have provided you with the necessary food for thought in considering the different dimensions of talent attraction and retention. Allow me in these closing remarks to briefly mention Luxembourg for Finance's latest talent campaign, in which we say that the wisest investment is in yourself. We should not forget that the investments we made in ourselves have paid dividends. It's through these that we have grown our skills and achieved our goals, and that we also provided value to our firms. Let's now together ensure that also the next generation can invest in themselves and pave the way for their continued success and the success of what we do in financial services. Everyone here today, the speakers and you, the audience, you're all part of this. And we are all influencers, as Geraldine mentioned earlier. I would therefore like to thank everyone, including our sponsors, for having supported today's event. And if you want to learn more about what makes Luxembourg a great place to work and live, then check out our website, movetolux.com. My colleague Chris will be back on 18 October with a focus on crypto and tokenization. We still have other topics lined up for you, so be sure to keep on checking out our events page on our website. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.